Hello everyone, this is Hobo here with another World Necro commentary. Um, kind of like the last time, this time I'll be focusing more so on like the macro scale of the fights and less so on the individual skills I'm using. Just more so along how I'm positioning and how I think as a Necro you should be moving throughout these fights, since I think that I personally find that more useful when it comes to these commentaries over like I use this ability and then I use this one. So hopefully you guys agree and hopefully you guys enjoy this video and let me know in the comments or give it a like. So hopefully you guys enjoy. So this is somewhat of a long drawn out fight where I have one pug with me and then an Ellie, or it's against a couple on the opposing Servant of Gax. But first thing I do is I want to pressure the Ranger in these fights just because, well, with very minimal impact or on their part, they can have a huge impact on me. They get one binding roots, and as a Necro, you're pretty much dead. So I'm able to down out the Ranger pretty easily, and I try and cleave him out so my Pug can rally, but the Pug doesn't end up getting the rally, so I'm left with a 1v2 against the Ellie and the Thief. Now the Ellie's doing a good job kind of kiting me around, and so eventually I was like, you know what, like, let's just change right onto the Thief. Let's try and pressure him, since he's actually opening himself up to my pressure. The Ellie gets a good root, but I've already downed out the Thief, so by the time I go down, I have enough pressure to down both of these guys. And so that's a big mistake people make, is that when you outnumber a Necro, you really just want to keep your distance, kind of chip away at them, because our upfront damage is insane currently with Deathly Chill, but the range damage and our ability to, if we're being kited around, to try and answer that kiting, that's really where we're lacking as a class. And so that's where they made their mistakes in these fights. And really the biggest thing is the Necros. You want to be able to capitalize on these opponents' mistakes. So after I win the fight, I go and rest the Pug, and a couple more guys come in here in a second, but people always seem to underestimate the amount of damage you can put in. So this Ellie gets nice and close, and boom, I interrupt his stuff. I get a nice Death Shroud 5 on him, and he's already down. And so people, it's like, people don't understand how much damage you can put out as a Necro. And really the biggest thing is, how can you exploit that? How can you make people think that what your strength isn't really a strength, and make them kind of bait them towards you? And for me, it's really easy, because if you're fighting outnumbered, people all the time make this mistake where they kind of charge in and they think that, oh, well, we outnumber them, whatever, it's fine. And that's what these guys just did. It was a 1v3 and it was easy. I didn't drop below 50%, nice and easy fight. So in this fight, I'm up against a fair number for the Aspen. I actually can't remember the number, but we're off the bat. I just kind of go in and I'm defending this camp, so I'm just trying to pressure out this Ellie. And it turns out he's really glass, so I'm able to down him out right away. Now there's the Thief and a Mesmer on me, and the Thief does a good job of stealing to me right after I pop my stab, so I think I'm going to be pressured here, and I try and jump over the fence to get some kiting, and then pop my Elite Shout so they can't just... since I know the steal's down, they don't have another boon strip for me, so I try and get that stab out, and that allows me to pressure out the Mesmer quite well. And you can see that the Thief's gone down just to miscellaneous cleave. You guys could see I was never targeting him, which is one thing that this build does quite well now, and part of that's just because of that's bouncing, but you put out so much damage just around you that if someone besides your target is taking pressure, you should always be willing to change target. And you can see that I'm solo roaming right now, but I definitely stay on an individual target, thinking like, alright, they have this many cooldowns, and how can I exploit that? How can I kind of like move throughout the fight to make sure that I'm keeping people down? You can see there, I go off and I make sure people stay down, despite there still being other people around during this fight. So I end up just kind of finishing off. I think I end up killing 4 opponents during this fight. I end up getting a little pressure just because of the Mesmer there and their downstate ability. But really, like, once again, people, like, when you're fighting Necros, you don't want to play to our strengths. We're really good at what we do, which is shit out damage. So this is a nice fight Thorp and I had where I think it ends up being like a 2v6 or something, but we start off approaching the south camp. We're on the bridge, and we don't really want to fight in the middle of the bridge. When you're outnumbered, you don't always want to have a choke like this. You want to, in my mind, you want to have a wide open space behind you where you can pull back, and then you want to have a choke in front of you where you can focus damage at the start. You don't want to have it where, right now, kind of where we're fighting, where they can just drop damage. One thing, pugs and players you most likely fight in World v World is that they're horrible at putting damage on specific targets unless there's a choke. So don't give them that. Now, we charge in here because we notice that they're all low, and you see we get 3 down relatively quickly. Now, I think I'm going down here, but Thorp pulls some sort of LA witchcraft, and I end up not going down. But the big thing with these sort of chokes, whenever you have a bridge like this as a necro, you have the ability to just chip away at your opponents. And then, especially if you have a support like I have here, eventually they're just going to run out of ways to deal with you. And that's exactly what happens here. They just flat out ran out of ways to deal with Thorp and my pressure. And they couldn't do anything about it, so we're able to just easily. So in this fight, it ends up being a little mixed here at the start, but if I remember correctly, FA kind of loses it here. So I focus the yak spend on the start because I know they outnumber the FA. And so I just want to try and pressure them enough so that I maybe can capitalize on what the FA started here. I didn't feel comfortable taking this 1v3 previously, but now that they're a little softened up, I figured I might as well try. So I actually don't know how that yak spend guy rallies right there. But because of that rally, I was about to push in on it. Luckily, he rallied before I did, so I pull back to the choke because I feel like I have the advantage here, despite it being a 3v1. Because I know that, alright, it's a baseline warrior, it's an LE, I think they're DD, so I feel like I have the advantage. So you can see just how quickly those two melt. I get a nice interrupt off there on the res, and it's a Condi Thief. So in my mind, when I'm facing a Condi Thief, unless they really outnumber me or they catch me totally off guard, I don't worry about them. No point. There's no point in focusing them. So it seems to be the hot class currently in World v World for whatever reason, but I don't think it's great. Now I pull back into the camp and I see 3 FA, and so my first thought is, oh shoot, these FA are going to jump me instantly. I don't know what they were really thinking because they let me eventually get a reset off here. And then after I've been able to reset, they open on me. So the Mesmer actually opens up first. I notice the Mesmer stealthing right there, and then I feel like, alright, they're going to come towards me, so I'll just get a little LOS, and boom, the Mesmer's back, and big mistake, Mesmer, you shouldn't have done this. So they get a nice knockback on me, but then I'm able to just drop the hammer and do a nice little spin to win there on that Mesmer, and then ends up downing the Mesmer. So that's one of the biggest, I wouldn't say counters, but it's one of the most effective classes against mine. That and DHs. And the DH opens on me right here, and I feel like I'm in trouble. But luckily, I had stabbed to get through that ring, and then I dropped down my Corrupt Field and Blind Field right on top of that res. So I'm able to get a good pull off on the res to interrupt it. And at that point, this fight's pretty much lost for these guys. There's one guy left, and it's this kind of tanky warrior, but he just doesn't have the pressure to burst through me in time. I'm able to get my heal off, and even though I'm still in Greatsword, I get one last little Scepter 3 use on this warrior, and he ends up going down. So I end up winning that 1v3 without too much fuss in the end. So this fight once again opens up with me seeing that this camp is being attacked, and I'm just coming to defend it. So I easily blow up this thief at the start. Now, that's really a misplay by the thief. He should be able to see me coming in. He should have known better than to do this. I killed him previously, so he should have known better than to just stand there. Now more FA are coming in. I kind of kite around because I want to be ranged from long distance. Now I make a mistake there. I should have just gone straight for the corrupt instead of trying to do the pull, then corrupt, because they already will have stripped their stab at that point. Now more and more people are coming in, a couple DHs, but I already have 2 down. Now 3 down, right as I say this. Once again, as a thief, you see these thieves dying just around me. That is a total misplay on their part, in my opinion. You really shouldn't be having that happen as a thief. Now, I'm getting kind of trained by this warrior, but I have the corrupt field down, so I'm feeling relatively safe. Now, what I don't feel safe about is this mesmer over here. So I'm trying to position myself so that the warrior can't chase me. He ends up going down, so it ends up being a non-issue. But now I need to worry about this mesmer, because if this mesmer plays it right, especially since the warrior is now vengeance, they should be able to kill me. Now, I get a nice Death Shroud 5. I believe it hits this mesmer, and that really puts him on the back foot. So the thief is back now after having rezzed or whatever. He's come back from spawn, and the mesmer is now down, and the thief is a non-factor. So he goes and SRs off into the distance, and he ends up just running away. He doesn't actually attempt the camp. He has effectively been defended against. So in this clip, we're trying to take this tower, actually. So FA has kindly enough gotten the wall down, and we decide that, alright, let's try it. So we kind of bait this warrior out at the start, and he's rifle, so it's good to get him right out of the fight right at the start. I don't waste too much of my Death Shroud on it. You see I kind of flash in and out, just enough to corrupt his boons. Now, this is another good target here with the Revenant, since he'll be sucking away all their condies, and we don't want that. So I end up charging in and getting a great spin right in the middle of all these guys. Even though it's cancelled early, we're able to down out such a large number at the start, and we put him out on back foot. So one thing as a necro I found is that you really want, you want to use the terrain to your advantage, yes, and you don't always want to be offensive, but you work so well as offensive, striking people when they don't expect you to be striking. In that case, we were outnumbered. Maybe they didn't expect us to come in quite as heavy or quite as quickly. It wasn't a huge outnumber. It was like a 3v5, but still, we very, very easily dispatched the people inside the tower, and now it's just one last one here who's come up a little late, only to see that his friends have already died before him. So this is a much longer fight here. That it's actually a group fight, and it kind of just starts off with us killing these people entering the camp, and it evolves into a much, much larger fight. Now, I think one reason why I wanted to include this in here is that it shows that, alright, as a necro, you don't have this mobility, you don't have the ability to, port around like a thief does, you don't have stealth like rangers, thieves, and mesmers do, and you don't have the access to, okay, you do have access to some stab, but you don't have access to a huge amount of it. But the biggest way to exploit this is that you will need, and you want people to kind of make mistakes, and you have to, as a necro, you have to capitalize on these. Like, you can't just sit around thinking, or I guess you can't play to other people's strengths quite so much when you're a necro. Like, sure, you can push in, but one of the best things to do as a necro is, if someone wants to come towards you, just let them come towards you. Gear up, make sure you have LOS so you can't be pinged from far, and then destroy the person who comes in. That's what necros do. That's what we do best right now, whether you're power or condi. Use your LOS correctly. Use your stab skills wisely. While you don't have huge access to stab, you still do have access to stab through Death Shroud 3, and then also your Elite Shout, which, while people can make an argument for Plague Lands, I think that the Elite Shout, especially while roaming, sure, in Zerg it's different, I'm not an expert on this, but in roaming, you should still be using that Elite Shout. It's access to stab to you, it can give you up to 10 stacks for 10 seconds, and when you have stab as a necro, you basically become just a machine. You just charge through people, dealing just an insane amount of damage around you. So, and I know that the video in the background of this commentary isn't exactly the best right now, as we just kind of kill these people as they delay the camp. I promise they do get more people here in a little bit, but really, I'm just using this as an opportunity to kind of talk about what I think, like how you should play as Necro. But feel free to play Necro as whatever way you want. This is just me. I should put that disclaimer on all my videos. These are just my opinions, or what I've found. So if you think you have a better way, by all means do it. This is just what I've found. So I guess I'll use this as an opportunity. A lot of times when I see necro gameplay, or I notice just necros around me in Rovie World, there seems to be a tendency to want to sit into Death Shroud. And I try and not do this as much as I can. So you'll see me usually, I'll get 1 or 2 skills off, maybe 3, and then I'll go instantly back into my normal form. And part of that's because of the build I'm playing. I don't have a huge amount of Death Shroud, and I don't have a huge amount of ability to just tank in it. But I want to be putting this on cooldown and getting out of it so I can re-enter it, get those procs back, get all these other aspects back as quickly as I can. So if you're using Spite, and you have Spiteful Spirit, or you have some of the other abilities, you don't want to be camping Death Shroud. Even if you're using Soul Reaping, you don't really want to be camping Death Shroud, because it is simultaneously one of your best offensive tools and one of your best defensive tools as a necro. So you want to always, as best you can, you want to have access to it in case that you want to push an opening that the opponents have given you, and then you also want to have opening for it in case you get pressured. Like a thief jumps you, you get half physical damage and condi damage while you're in Shroud. So you want to have that as an opportunity, or an option for yourself when those things happen. So you don't want to be wasting it, just sitting in it, spamming one. It's not a ranged Reaper Shroud, right? So you just want to be like in and out relatively quickly, get some skills off, enter back out. Now, that's the case unless you're extremely pressured. If you're extremely pressured, of course, stay in it. But if you're not, like I am right now, you'll see I'm pretty quickly in and out. Like I'll get Death Shroud too often, I'll go back out. And I personally find that is the best way to maximize the amount of pressure that you're able to put on people. Now, right there, I make a mistake. I should have just stayed in Shroud so I could get the cleave off, but I was able to get a good Greatsword pull off, and I still have enough cleave through Greatsword that I don't need that so much. And you can see that, you know, as a necro, and granted, the comp that we're running right now, it's a very strong comp currently, but you're constantly playing around each other. We're not running off into one distance. I'm not trying to be a hero. I'm not charging in at this point, because we're just trying to play this matchup safe. We're trying to maximize what we do well. We want to exploit the opponent's weaknesses, which is mainly their coordination. So if we stay coordinated, we stay grouped up together, and we stay, supporting each other, calling targets out, making sure we're focusing the same stuff, we feel confident we're going to be able to win this fight. Now, whether or not that's the case, not always, but in this case, we're doing a good job. We're pulling back for LOS. We're kind of working together where, alright, here's a priority target, here's the next one. Let's try and build on top of each other for these fights. Now, Yaxpent has really started to build up quite a group that's approaching us here, and so we pull back to kind of behind this house here, since it gives us the opportunity to LOS, and whenever you have a sharp turn or choke like that as a necro, it's a great thing to pull back to, because it effectively acts as a funnel for people to come in on. And if people decide to engage you that way, you can just destroy them. Now, once again, granted, only a few followed us this time, but we felt confident that if that entire group that you see off in the corner right now, if they had all followed us, we would have been fine. So now they've gained a few more, and we've pulled back to our same spot. I try and pull this guy, but just out of range. Regardless, one issue of this spot is that you're open to flanks. And so here in a second, we actually get flanked by the rest, or part of the rest, and they have the range advantage on us. So we make the call to go back to the house. Let's just try and get the LOS. And again, we're just trying to play to our strengths. Our comp, we're not a mobile comp, besides D, who's currently dying off there in the distance. We're not a mobile comp. What do we do well? We put out a bunch of damage when people come to us. So as a necro, don't try and be something you aren't. Don't try and be a ranger. Don't try and be a guardian. You're not going to be in there supporting people. You're not going to be in there doing all this other stuff. Just be a necro. Just do damage. Do that while you CC and fear people away, and you'll be fine. So this fight ends up where we're trying to learn back in the centaurs, but nobody follows us because apparently they watch our previous clips. So that's kind of the end of this clip, unfortunately. We're kind of hoping they'd follow us, but they didn't.
This is a Chucky Beat production.